tricky questions and straight answers, answers to biblical queries. That is a common question. Every now and then, atheists and opponents of the Bible ask this question: where did Cain get his wife? What the atheists and those who oppose the Bible ask is, there were only two children to Adam and Eve. Cain is said to have married somebody. Whom did Cain marry? Their insinuation is that the narration of the Bible is illogical and hence Bible is not divine. They also argue that God of the Bible is also not real. Their ultimate aim is to discredit the God of Bible, but they do not know that they are cutting the branch of the tree on which they are sitting. By denying God, what is the source for the universe in which they live? How can they justify their existence? There has to be a creator of the matter and also energy with which I am made. Let us come to the fact. What is the truth? The Bible doesn't say that Adam and Eve had only two children. That is a wrong statement. Secondly, on the contrary, the Bible says that Adam and Eve had many sons and daughters, reproduced over 800 years. Genesis 5:8 says it directly. Therefore, it has to be presumed that Cain married his own sister. Then the question comes, why God encouraged incest? Incest means marriage between relatives. The stigma against marriage between those relatives is a cultural thing. Since in our culture we don't marry our relatives, we feel bad whenever somebody does that. The culture came from the teaching of the Bible also. That is the fact. But after 2000 years of the death of Cain only, the prohibition against relative marriage was brought out by the Bible for the first time in the history of humanity. Why God encouraged incest? This is clear from the history. Now I will bring out some historical facts. The Ptolemies were practicing brother-sister marriage to keep the purity of their lineage. This was their role. It was in existence in some tribal groups in India up to recently. They were marrying their sisters. Even in Kerala, still uncle-niece marriage is taking place. Cousin-cousin marriage is very, very prevalent. Those who don't do such practices, cousin-cousin marriage or uncle-niece marriage, they may feel very odd when they see such things happening. That is a cultural shock because of the cultural difference. Why God then introduced a prohibition? If it is only a cultural thing, it should have been continued. In the Genesis narrative, Genesis chapter 1 to verse 5, we see that the earth was covered by a blanket of water, and outside that, a blanket of water vapor. Because of that, no deleterious rays like X-rays and UV rays were coming to the surface of the earth in the initial periods. The world was covered by the cloud covering, that too very thick cloud covering. But at the time of Noah, when the sin of man exceeded all limits, God allowed a universal flood or deluge with which the whole humanity was exterminated. At that time, the cloud cover of the earth was converted into the rain, and the blanket of the earth was lost forever with that. After the deluge, the X-rays and UV rays started falling on the surface of the earth. The hereditary diseases started coming because of the mutation caused by this irradiation. There is another reason also. When man was created, he was not a cultured being. The civilization was gradually progressing. Only after, say, 2000 years of his existence, he understood the various nuances of civilized life. Then only the prohibition of relative marriage was necessary to have good family relationships. At that stage, that is after 2000 years of human existence, God prohibited relative marriage. God made it a law. We read it in the book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy. It is a part of the law of God. It became a cultural stigma as well. When the law was given and people started revering the law, it became a cultural stigma to marry relatives. This principle of becoming something a cultural taboo because of the prescription in a law is there in our day-to-day life. For example, dowry was never considered to be a bad thing, maybe 100 years back. But now, if somebody takes it, there is a sort of stigma. People would look down upon. Why? Because it is prohibited. Just like that, when God prohibited relative marriage, after 2000 years of existence of man, it became a social stigma. But there is an interesting fact to be mentioned at this juncture, that all the penal codes in the world originated from the law of the Old Testament. And therefore, the characteristics of the Old Testament and getting a law converted into a social standard also was inherited from the Old Testament of the Bible. Yes, Cain married his own sister, but it was at a time when the humanity was totally uncivilized and they wouldn't have felt any shame about it. Yes, Cain married his own sister. Firstly, at a time when there was no social stigma because the humanity was in a very uncivilized condition. Secondly, at a time when there was no mutation to scare man from marrying his own relatives. Only when mutations accumulated, it started causing hereditary problems for the children of people who are related. It was only a natural thing that Cain was allowed to marry his own sister. Thank you for the patient here. May God bless you.